Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today to our Silicon Valley Reads Teen Author event. I just want to take a moment to thank you all so much for being here. We so appreciate it. Before we get started, we just want to do a couple of quick introductions and then just go over a little bit of housekeeping. So first of all, my name is Rebecca, and I'm one of the teen librarians with the Santa Clara County Library District. And with me, I'd like to introduce our two teen panelists, who are Hannah and Purnima. Thank you both for being here. We're so excited you're here, and they're going to be running the panel today. And then finally, I'd like to introduce Jennifer, our county librarian. So thank you all so much for helping make this program possible. Two final announcements before we get started. One is to our audience, please feel free to enter any questions you might have in the chat box, and we'll try to get to as many as we can toward the end of our program. And then lastly, we're very excited to announce that we have a special giveaway that we're going to be doing. So thank you, Nicola, for helping make this happen. We have a signed copy of, I don't know if you can see it, it's hard to see, the book, The Sun is Also a Star. So we are going to be giving that away to an audience member. So if you want to enter to win a signed copy of the book, in the chat, please enter your first name, the first letter of your last name, and then your favorite character from the book. And then we'll be selecting someone who gets to win that book at the end of the program. So now what we're going to do is a short promotional video for Silicon Valley Reads. I'm going to be sharing my screen, and then I'm going to be handing it over to Jennifer, who's going to do an introduction for our very, very special guest. So give me one moment.
Welcome to Silicon Valley Reads. Started in 2003 as a one book, one community program, Silicon Valley Reads has grown to become a thriving community engagement initiative throughout Santa Clara County, including books and events for all ages. Presented by the Santa Clara County Office of Education, the Santa Clara County Library District, and the San Jose Public Library, Silicon Valley Reads gives our community new perspectives and understanding of important, relevant issues and encourages people to read, think, discuss, and engage. The theme for 2021 is connecting. We are adjusting to living our lives in a pandemic with more solitude than ever before. This year, we are focused on finding our commonalities and talking about the things that bring us comfort and joy. We've selected 10 books to encourage everyone to find the connections that are uniquely meaningful to them, whether through relationships, food, nature, art, music, animals, or books. We hope you enjoy today's presentation. Thank you for attending.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And I am very honored to get to introduce our very special guest. So this year, Silicon Valley Reads, as the video said, is all about connecting. And so we have a series of programs all about this central theme. And the teen title for this year is The Sun is Also a Star, which is described by the LA Times as romantic, full of intelligence, understanding, and hope, and certainly connecting. And so we're so really proud to have Nicola Yoon with us today to welcome her. She is a #1 New York Times bestselling author, a National Book Award finalist, a Michael O. Prince Honor Book recipient, and a Coretta Scott King New Talent Award winner. And of course, both of her books have been made into major motion pictures. She grew up in Jamaica and Brooklyn, now lives in Los Angeles, away from that snow, with her husband and the novelist David Yoon and their family. So please join me in thanking and welcoming Nicola here today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, and thank you for having me. I am actually really excited. I'm really looking forward to this chat because I am trapped in my house, and it's nice to see some friendly faces who love books as much as I love books. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about connecting. It's such a great theme.
Awesome. Yeah, we're so excited to have you here. So go ahead. I believe Purnima, you're the first. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much for being here once again. And with that, let's get into our first question. So when did you initially fall in love with writing? And what kind of inspired you to begin writing your own novels?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a funny story about how I became a writer. And it's not a serious story in any way, right? So the way people fall in love with doing things is you sort of sometimes stumble onto it. So I was an electrical engineering major in college. I went to Cornell, upstate New York. And, basically electrical engineering is a lot of math classes. So I took a lot of math, but in your senior year at college, they make you, or at Cornell anyway, they make you take an elective outside of your major. And so I thought I'd take creative writing because I thought it was going to be very easy, because it's like, I've done insane math, like writing, big deal, right? And I was obnoxious. And I got into this class, and it was the single hardest class I've ever taken, because writing is just different, right? You have to put your heart out there, and you have to try to convince people that the people on the page are really alive, and they really feel these things, and they really say these things, and you have to keep people entertained. And it's difficult, definitely harder than math. And at the time when I was taking the class, I was suffering from unrequited love from this boy that I just thought was the cutest. And so I loved him so much, and he did not love me at all, not even a tiny amount. And so all my stuff was about him. I always say that I wrote bad screenplays and bad poetry and bad stories and bad everything about him. And then I had a one-on-one with my professor, like you do for school. And she said I had potential. She liked my writing. She said, "You really have potential." And it changed everything for me. And then she told me I would also get over the boy. And I didn't believe her. But by the end of the year, I totally was over it. But I was completely in love with writing. And so I always say unrequited love and math is somehow how I got to be a writer. But, recently I found my old diaries from when I was 8. And it said in there, I want to be a writer when I grow up. So I knew at one point, and then I forgot about it for a number of years. And then I remembered again.
That's amazing. I'm really glad you took that creative writing class.
Yeah, you, right? Not so much for the unrequited love part, though. Wait, was there a second part to your question? I think I might have, or did I answer everything?
I think you answered pretty much all of it. Yeah.
I'm curious, why do you handwrite your first draft?
I get this question a lot. So I do handwrite everything into these notebooks, these moleskin notebooks. And this is a book that has not been announced yet. So I write, into these notebooks, and I have a theory as to why I do it. And I think it's because it makes me feel freer. Because for some reason, if it's just pen on paper, I am more willing to just entertain crazy ideas, right? Just anything that occurs to me. I'm not editing myself, because that's one of the things that I think, especially with newer writers, happens, is that you think, oh, no one will believe that, or, oh, no, that's not good. But for some reason, when I have my pen and paper, I allow myself to be that, right? I allow myself to go all these different places. And I just, all the wild ideas that come to me get put down, and, I end up keeping a lot of them. But when I'm at the computer, it's different. I only do it for first drafts, though. So the first version of the book is what I write into those notebooks. And then when I'm revising, every few days I type in what I've written in my notebooks. And then when I'm revising, I'm all on the computer, because all the wild ideas are already out there. And that's when I'm revising, I'm editing, I'm shaping it. And for some reason, I can't do that in my notebooks anymore. But I think that's why.
So for me, sometimes brainstorming for short essays in school can take me a long time, How long does it take you to have your books go from early drafts to published novels?
Okay, so good question. So it's different for every book. So my first book is called Everything, Everything. And that book I wrote, it was over the course of 3 years, from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. And the reason I had to write it from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. is I had a full-time job at the time. So and I had a 3-month-old. So it was the only time that I could write. Let's see. So 3 years for that one. The Sun Is Also a Star took about a year. half of the time I was writing full time. So the first half of that book, I still had my full time job, and the second half, I was writing full time because everything had become successful enough for me to become a writer full time. And my next book, which is coming out in June, that one was an odyssey, let me tell you. And the reason I say that is because I actually wrote another book before the one that's coming out, and it failed. Like, it just is not a good book. I've tried to rescue it many times, but it's just not very good. It just did not work. And so the one that's coming out in June, though, is, I like it. It's pretty good. We'll see what everyone else thinks. That took another year and a half. So total for this third book, 2.5 years, maybe 2.5. So it's different for every book, it depends on life happens. When I was writing my latest book, my mom got very sick, and my father-in-law died. And, there's just all this stuff that's happening in your life. And sometimes you pick up the pen and sometimes you have to put it back down again.
So you are an adult, but you're writing from a teen's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach writing books for teens without sounding like an adult that's writing a book for teens?
Well, I hope I'm pulling it off. I think it's because I'm a kid at heart. I write love stories, and I love. Like, I am a romantic goober, and I'm not embarrassed by that or anything. I love love. I think it's the best thing in the world. I think it's the reason the world exists. I think it's the thing that makes the world go round. I think it's the thing that everyone wants and needs. They'll do anything to get it. And it's sort of funny to me how many people sort of poo-poo love stories, and I'm just like, love is all there is. And I'm like, you can't prove me wrong about this. Love is all there is. But I think the reason that I can write for teenagers so well is because I think teenagers are always questioning things, right? I think it's just, you're starting to discover the world and yourself. You're like asking the big questions about, do I believe in God? Who do I want to be in the world? Who am I? How am I going to be a better person, a better citizen, a better everything? And you're experiencing all these firsts, right? And that's actually quite a philosophical position to be in, to ask big questions. I think we adults forget to ask the big questions about life, but teenagers don't. They're asking them. And I am very philosophical, right? So I'm naturally that person who really is asking questions all the time. I'm kind of annoying to be at a dinner party with, because I'm always like, well, what does that mean? What does it really mean? And people are like, just go away, Nikki, just go away. And so, I honestly think I'm sort of simpatico with teenagers. We think the same way, like we're asking the same sorts of questions. And, for me, it's like a real privilege to write for teens, because I think they're open to the world. And I want to be a part of that conversation. I want to say, well, look at this point of view, and look at this point of view, and look at all these possibilities for knowing yourself and loving yourself and making the world better. So, for me, it's a real honor. I think that's why, anyway.
So I really enjoyed in The Sun is Also a Star, how you kind of intertwined the other characters' perspectives into there. So it was not just Natasha and Daniel, there were the other characters as well. So as an author, what kind of prompted this stylistic decision?
Oh, good question. So I guess I should say, and if there's anyone in the audience who hasn't read the book, it's about Natasha and Daniel. So Daniel is this very poetic boy. He's Korean American. He's very poetic, and he's trying to convince Natasha, this Jamaican immigrant, to fall in love with him over the course of 12 hours in New York City. And the reason he only has 12 hours to convince her is because her family is slated to be deported at the end of the day. And so the book is written from 2 points of view. You get Daniel's point of view and you get Natasha's, but you also get the points of view of the side characters that they're running into during their day. So, they run into a train conductor and some various attorneys, and we see their lives too. And what I was trying to do is to show that we're all connected in the world, right? Because I think that what happens to us is our lives are very big and busy, and there's all this information all the time, right? And I think it's possible to go through your day not realizing that you're affected by the lives of other people. And the example I always give is, say you wake up one morning and you're in a bad mood, you're having a crappy day, right? And say you go to Starbucks and you get a coffee, and the barista is really nice to you, like, nice hair, they compliment your tie, they compliment your jacket, your shirt, your dress, whatever, right? And you feel a little bit better, right? Just from a simple kindness, right? Hey, I really like your tie. And so you're feeling a little better, and you go across the street to work, or you go to your office or whatever, and you hold the door open for someone because now you're feeling better. And that person had been having a crappy day, but now you held the door open and they're like, no one ever holds the door anymore. That's so nice, right? And so now they're feeling a little better. And maybe you walk to the elevator together and you get in and you get to talking. And then, you start dating, you get married, and you have 500 children, right? So like I say this and everyone always laughs, but it's really true, right? We do affect each other. And I really wanted to say that. I wanted to say that you're affected by the lives of strangers. You're affected by their entire histories. That barista woke up and was having a good day and spread it, and you spread it more. And so that's why I chose to do it. Like, I just wanted to say that we're all connected, and maybe if we could all stop, take a breath, then we'd be kinder to each other, because we would know it matters, right? We would know it matters what you say to that next person.
Awesome. What are some tactics that you use to overcome writer's block?
I play video games. I play a lot of video games. I'm not kidding. I totally do. Right now I'm playing Immortal Phoenix Rising, which is it's a great game. So for me, writer's block usually happens when basically what I've done is I've made my characters do the wrong thing, right? So say I have someone really shy. This is a bad example, but say I'm writing a really shy character, and suddenly she just sort of bursts into song in an auditorium filled with 1,000 people. That's not something she would do, right? And so usually when I have writer's block, it's because I made a wrong choice. The character did something that they shouldn't, thought something, I'm just stuck. And usually what I need to do is basically delete, and go back to where we were still doing the thing that, because the characters come to life for me after a while, and they know what they want to do. I just need to figure it out, right? So sometimes the only way to get to that is to take a break, right? First, delete the bad stuff, and then take a break. I play video games, I go for a walk. I can't write my way through the writer's block. I just gotta let it pass. But I still do write. I still sit there and think about it, get up, play a video game, go back to it. I don't take that long a break from it, but it's usually because I've done something wrong.
Have you yourself answered the New York Times 36 questions that lead to love?
I love this question. So in the book, again, for those of you who haven't read it, Daniel tries to get Natasha to fall in love with him by answering this quiz, so 36 questions to make someone fall in love. And it's actually a real quiz, right? So this is a scientist a few years ago came up with this list of questions and then ended up falling in love with one of the subjects and getting married based on these questions. And so the questions are supposed to foster intimacy, basically shortcut the process of meeting someone. You go from, you get rid of the small talk and you get into the really sort of intimate questions. I did the quiz with my husband while I was writing the book. And there's one of the questions is you have to stare into each other's eyes for 4 minutes without talking, right? So I made him do it with me so I could write it in the book. And what happens is the first minute you feel stupid. You're just like, what are we doing? This is ridiculous. But after a while, it really starts to matter. You're really paying attention to everything about your partner's face, and you're just looking at the things that you love, and then you start thinking about your history. And we really felt closer after that 4 minutes. So we didn't do all the questions, but we did that part.
Sort of building off of Hannah's question, as you mentioned, the sun is also a star follows the one-day romance. Yeah, I can't help but notice how beautifully developed it is. It's so developed. despite the short time that they've like spent with each other. How were you able to put this together, and what are some challenges that you faced while doing so?
Yeah, so we'll talk about the challenges first. So there are logistical challenges, right? So it takes place over 12 hours in New York City. I live in LA. I used to live in New York, but I live in LA now, right? So, in order to get it right, Google Maps was my friend. But really, I had to zoom in on neighborhoods and make sure I remembered the things that I was writing about. I had to look up subway schedules to make sure of how long it actually took to get from this point to the other point. I looked up like the average walking speed of like a human boy, like stuff like that. I had a spreadsheet where I like timed everything out because you just it had to make sense, like not down to the second, but it couldn't be. I didn't want to get an email from someone going, "You can't take that train here." I just didn't want that. So like it's accurate. And then for the emotional parts, I think under periods of high stress, you can get people to talk, right? Do you know what I mean? That they're more sort of willing to open up. Daniel in the book is poetic anyway, and he just thinks Natasha is the most beautiful thing in the world. And he's determined to get to know her. And so he's not engaging in small talk, right? He's really wanting to know her, like intimately, like I don't mean physically, I mean just her brain. And Natasha is so stressed out anyway. She doesn't have time for playing any games, and he sort of sweeps her off her feet. The trick to writing the book is just to write things that are true, right? I mean, that's the trick to writing anyway. The whole job is to tell the truth. So when Natasha didn't want to answer a question, she said that in the book. And if she thought he was going too fast, she said that. So I just tried to make the characters honest and not superficial. So I sort of shortcut the process a little bit. They didn't spend a lot of time going, "What's your favorite color?" They really wanted to know, "Do you believe in God?" Right? They just went right there.
When writing this book, what steps did you take, if any, to familiarize yourself with Korean culture? And also, did you learn anything about your own culture during the writing process?
Ooh, good question. So my husband's Korean American, so that helped. So he read it. We've been married for 19 years. It'll be 19 years this year. And so he read it and told me all the things I did wrong, like if I got things wrong. But the fact is, I've been with him for a long time. I've been with his family for a long time. I had my sister-in-law read it. I had Ellen O, who's the founder of We Need Diverse Books, read it. I had my cousin-in-law read it. So I had a lot of people read it for accuracy. And not just, cultural accuracy as well as like some of the things like, no one who's Korean American or very few Korean Americans would eat something like this for breakfast, like so stuff like that. Because it was important to me to get that stuff right. So I did that, and I think I did okay. But I do think it's important to do that especially if you're writing outside of your own sort of culture and ethnicity. As for learning things about my own Jamaican heritage, I did actually learn a lot of things when I was doing it. I moved to America when I was 11, and I'd forgotten a lot of things about Jamaica. And when I was researching for the book, there are lots of facts that didn't end up in the book, but I did learn a lot while I was doing it.
So I have a bit of a fun question. Natasha is described as a practical person with an interest in astrophysics, and Daniel's like the poetic and more imaginative kind of individual. Would you say that you're more of a Natasha or a Daniel with respect to their personalities?
So I think I'm both, right? So as I say, I was an electrical engineering major. I'm a pretty big geek. I love space. So I will read all the articles, but I'm also obviously artistic, right? I write books for a living. I think that what I wanted to do with Natasha and Daniel is they think that they're really opposite, right? And I think a lot of people think that art and science are opposed, and I don't think they are. I really think that, I always say they're both trying to get at the truth, right? Art is trying to get to something that's true, and science is trying to get to the truth. It's just a different road, right? They just take different paths to get there. And you need both, right? Like the sun is beautiful and it saves our lives. Like it's a, those are both true things, right? I mean, it's functional and poetic. And I think most things, honestly, are like that. So I am a little bit of both. And Natasha and Daniel are too. They just don't realize it at the beginning, right? That they are both poetic and practical, scientific, however you want to say it.
Do you have any advice for those who feel pressure from their strict immigrant American dream chasing parents like Daniel and Charlie?
Oh my God, yes. Hang tough. I do have advice. I mean, that's such a great question, right? Because the pressures of family are enormous. And, in the book, Daniel's parents don't want him to be a poet, right? They see that path as being sort of unstable, fraught with danger. They grew up poor themselves. And so, what parents want for their kids more than anything is stability and safety, right? Especially if you come from poverty. Like I grew up pretty poor, and poverty is very destabilizing. And more than anything, for my little girl, I just want stability, right? So I understand where that sort of instinct to protect your kids comes from. Having said all that, it is your life, right? You are the one that has to live in. You have to be able to live with yourself. You have to be able to get through the day. You have to be able to feel like you have a purpose. I didn't quit my job until I could replace my income, right? So there's a way to do it both ways. It's hard, right? You can't make art if you're starving. That's just true. Like you can't do it if you don't know where your next healthcare is coming from, where the food is coming from, paycheck is coming from. So I would say while you were struggling, keep your day job, right? People always say don't quit your day or quit your day job, but don't, honestly, until you can replace the income or figure out a way to survive. Don't quit your day job. But it's up to you in the end. It's your life. You have to be able to say, I'm going to do this thing. I feel passionate. I'm going to work hard and I'm going to go for it because, no one is in your body but you.
That's really great. Just for your first novel, Everything, Everything, how did it feel like when you learned that the book was going to be published? And what was it like to realize that it was so beloved by people all around the world?
It's still just a wild experience. Honestly, like I get emails all the time from everywhere that people are discovering the books. And I mean, it's the best thing. Like, I'm not going to lie, right? When someone says, your book changed my life, but this really mattered to me, or I learned something about myself. I got one of the best emails I've ever gotten was from this girl. I think she was 14. And she said, I read Everything, Everything. And when I got to the end, I hated the book and it was horrible. And I was like, why are you sending me this email? I just couldn't. I was like reading this email going, this is bad. And then she says she showed the book to her mom and her mom read it and got to the end. And then her mom understood, like, I don't want to spoil it, but her mom understood the ending. She understood why the mom in the book did what she did. And then they talked about it together. And then in the letter, she said, and now I love your book. So like this book managed to bring them together, both reading this book and understanding each other a little bit more. And that's fantastic. I mean, when I found out it was going to be published, I was on a plane on the way to Hawaii when I found out on vacation. And I got the email right before the plane took off that the book was going to be sold. And I was thrilled. But getting to do this for a living is my biggest, wildest dream. I cannot believe I get to do it. So yeah, it's been good.
Hair is a reoccurring subject in The Sun is Also a Star. What
Yeah.
attracted you to writing about the history of African American hair?
No one has asked me this question before. Thank you very much, actually. It's a great question. You know, it's so fraught in America, especially this idea that there's only one way that your hair should be, especially for Black women. I will say, especially for Black women. I remember growing up, you could not be professional if your hair was like in an afro or braids. That was just not considered the professional way for your hair to be. I used to work in finance on the trading desk, and I could not have my hair blue. Like, it's not blue now, but it's been blue and it's going to be blue very soon again. You know, so there's all this sort of rules about hair. And what I wanted Natasha to do is to be free of them, right? Because everyone tells you what you're supposed to be. I think that happens to teenage girls a lot, especially. I think girls of color get put into boxes a lot. You have to be like this, and you're supposed to do this. And I'm here to tell you that that's nonsense. Wear your hair the way you want. You know, don't hurt people, but be who you want to be. So the reason I focused on hair is because it's such a hot issue for Black girls, and we get told by so many people how we're supposed to wear our hair. So I wanted to show the history of it, and then try to say, do what you want now. You know the history. Those chains are gone. If you want to wear a fro, it's great. If you want to relax it, great. Like, you're not making any statement about how you like your hair, do you know? So that's why I wrote about it.
I think it's great you included that kind of statement in the novel. And I also learned that you're an avid supporter of the We Need Diverse Books campaign. Mm-hmm. And as a brown woman myself, I really love this campaign because I feel like a stronger connection to books that portray my culture and traditions. And the Silicon Valley Reads 2021 theme this year is connecting. So why do you think it's sort of important to highlight cultural connections, specifically in young adult fiction?
Right. So I'll talk a little bit about We Need Diverse Books. So We Need Diverse Books is an organization sort of dedicated to making sure like there are more books with people of color in them, and not just people of color, but any sort of underrepresented minority, right? So LGBTQIA and disabled and people of color and anyone who's underrepresented. Just, you know, everyone deserves to see themselves as the hero in a story, right? And so that's the mission of We Need Diverse Books. So, you know, I will say personally, these things, when we talk about diversity, people talk about it in like sort of political terms. It's like a headline, you know, but these things are way more personal than that, right? Like, it's not politics, or they always say the political is the personal. For me, when I was a kid, no one looked like me in books. Like, I did not read books where girls looked like me. And the first time I saw someone that looked like me was in The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. And the character wasn't like me, but she was Black, right? And I remember being so surprised by that, like so surprised that you could have a main character who was Black because everyone else hadn't been. And she had her own agency, she had her own interior thoughts. The book was about her and for her. And I could not believe it. I was like, what? You can do this? This is the thing? And so, you know, what I don't want is for my little girl to grow up feeling like that. And so when I say these things are very personal, the character of Maddie and everything looks exactly like my little girl, right? I wrote it for her. Right? I wrote it so she could see herself in a book. And that's personal. That has nothing to do with politics. That's just me as a mom going, I don't want you to go through this. Everyone should be able to see themselves as a hero, you know, and a story about a brown girl in a wheelchair who is queer is just as universal as a story about a white man who is straight, or a white boy who's straight. Both things, you can learn a lesson from both of them. All the stories are universal, and so we should have more stories. Yeah.
So this is something that I'm struggling with right now. what advice do you have for students that have not decided on a career or a college major?
Well, okay, when do you have to decide by?
I have a year.
Yeah, okay. Do you have to decide? Do you have to pick something right away in that year?
When I apply, I will have one.
Yeah. So it feels very big, right? So I majored in electrical engineering. I don't do any electrical engineering, right? So it is possible to change, just stay open, follow the things that you're passionate about, but also stay open to the world because you can change your mind, right? I loved math and I still love math. I didn't love applying my math brain to finance when I worked in finance for 20 years. You can always change your mind. It's not as final as you think, but be thoughtful, and choose and know it's okay if you change your mind. You'll turn out okay, right? The reason you go to college, the biggest thing I learned in college is how to think, right? How to reason for myself, how to figure out stuff on my own. That's what I learned, right? I learned how to do partial differential equations, and I have never used it since. So you're going to be okay. So, go meet some lovely people. Some of my best friends are from college and grad school, and learn how to think, learn how to be open to the world, and you'll be fine, even if you change your mind.
And last, but certainly not least, what can you tell us about your new book coming out, Instructions for Dancing?
Well, I have a picture of the cover, which I'm going to show you because I love it so much. And every time I look at it, it makes me happy. So there it is. Can you see? So yeah, and I don't even know how to talk about this book yet because it's just announced, but it's about a girl named Evie. She's having a hard time because her parents have gotten divorced. She doesn't believe in love anymore because her dad cheated on her mom and she found out. And then one day she meets this woman and then gets this mysterious power. So every time she sees a couple kiss for the first time, she sees the entire history of their relationship. So she sees how they began, their first date, and she sees all the highlights of their relationship. And then she sees how their relationship ends. And the thing she takes from that is that all relationships end. So it makes her even more cynical. And then, of course, here comes the boy, the super cute rock star. And his name is Xavier, and he is in a rock and roll band. And she falls in love with him. But the whole time she's thinking, what's going to happen? Because I know all relationships end. And I think that's all I can really say without giving away what happens in the book. But that's what it's about. And I wrote it when I was struggling with this question, is that, when you fall in love or when you love someone, your child, your work, whatever, it's wonderful, right? It's just, you feel so much joy, but it makes you really vulnerable. When my husband, David, or my little girl leave, I feel like my heart has walked out the door, when they go to school for the day or go to work for the day, right? And so it does leave you vulnerable. And the question of the book is a big love worth the heartache? What if something happens to the person you love the most? How do you recover it? Is it worth falling in love when it might end? That's the question of the book.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to read it. Wow. First of all, yeah, those questions and answers were so amazing. I know I'm not the only one.
Sorry, Hannah, pointing out, you guys are excellent.
Yeah, big time. You guys did so good. And I know from what people are saying in the chat and what people who have my phone number are texting me, this has been amazing. So this has been great. We have a couple questions that we're going to do from the chat, and then we're going to finish off the program with some lightning round fun questions. So we have two separate audience members who have asked, Is The Sun is Also a Star based on you and your husband? I'm sure you've been asked this before.
I get this question all the time. It was the funniest question. And it's my own fault, honestly, because I made the characters look like us.
Mhm.
And also the initials are the same, right? So my husband is David and it's Daniel with a D, right? And I'm Nicola and it's Natasha with an N. And so I get so many emails. It's like, is it you guys? And I'm like, no. I did not fall in love with David over the course of 12 hours in New York City under threat of deportation. That did not happen. We met in graduate school. I made the whole thing up. But the things that are true are, like I love karaoke. Like we go, well, before time, we used to go all the time. And it's true that we talk about big, deep subjects all the time. Like we are like those sort of philosophical geeks. And Natasha and Daniel in the book talk about like big things. And so some of that stuff is true, like, sort of context, but not the actual facts. They'll made it up.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. I was curious too, so thank you. And then one more question from the chat. I know you talked about the logistics of crafting a book that took place over 12 hours, but why did you choose it to be? That's the question, is why did you end up having the story take place in just one day?
That is just purely, I love the movie Before Sunrise. I don't know if you guys have seen this movie. It's like an older romantic comedy. It's got, I'm not going to remember it. It's Ethan Hawke and I'm not going to remember it. Julie Delpy. And it takes place over just a few hours there in Europe. And it's one of my favorite romantic comedies ever. And I just wanted to see, can two people fall in love in 12 hours? Can I convince you? Can I convince myself? That was just pure, I want to do it. So I did it. And at first I was so thrilled. And then when you get into the logistics, I was just like, why did I do this? This is a nightmare, like a nightmare of spreadsheets. But I mean, I also wanted to heighten the plot, right? I wanted to keep you reading, right? And like, it's only 12 hours. There is an end date. Will these two make it? And I feel like that keeps turning the pages too.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So we'll do one more question from the chat and then we'll do our fun lightning round segment. So the question is, what difficulties have you faced as a woman of color in the industry? What have you learned from those difficulties?
Well, I will say that I've had something of a Cinderella experience. Like I have a really great publishing team. Like I have never experienced any pushback for the things I want to write about, for the things I say, for the articles I write. Having said that, I definitely know people who have, right? Like personal friends who have gotten we already have a book by a Black author, so we can't publish this one. And if you look at the statistics, publishing is overwhelmingly white, and minorities or underrepresented people are underrepresented by a lot with published books. The thing that I feel like I want to work to change is my husband and I started a new imprint at Random House Children's Books called Joy Revolution. And the mission of that imprint is to publish books starring people of color and their love stories, like stories of joy, happily ever afters, big spoony with lots of kisses, right? And the reason that we want to do this is because so many times when you see stories with people of color, it's like a pain story. It's like racism or like an immigrant story, and there's a lot of pain, there are a lot of issues. And I still think that we need those books because we live in America, and America has problems, right? There are still problems of race. There's problems of, we see it every day in the news. And so we still do need books that say, if you are a gay person and you're coming out and having trouble, here's a book that shows you a character who's going through the same thing, right? So you do need those sort of issue-oriented books. But you also need books where, it's just, there's a Black girl falling in love, there's an Asian girl falling in love, and they're falling in love with each other, and there's kissing in it, right? Something where you feel happy and safe, where you're allowed the sort of full measure of your humanity, where you don't exist to teach a lesson, and there's no pain in it, right? Because the fact is, I don't wake up every morning thinking about the struggle, because who can live like that? That is zero fun for anybody, right? Like I wake up thinking about coffee, which David makes for me because he's awesome, and my little girl's school, and usually wanting a blueberry muffin because blueberry muffins are the best. So, we started this imprint to sort of combat that sort of thing. And we'll see how we do. Like we've gotten tremendous support from Random House Children's Books, and hopefully when we start publishing these books, people will buy them, and sort of put these stories out into the world so that people, sort of see the human, universal side to everyone. Everyone's universal, everyone's human, everyone falls in love.
Amazing. Yeah, I know I'm definitely looking forward to seeing those books being published. I want to read the story you described. That sounds great.
We just find our first author, and I cannot wait to announce it because she is.
That's so great. Awesome. Okay, so now we're on to our final segment, which is our lightning round question. So I'll hand it back to you two.
All right, let's go, ladies.
Yeah, what's your favorite show that you're watching at the moment? I'm sure there are a lot that you've watched since the pandemic started.
Okay, I have to say I love Bridgerton. I loved Bridgerton. Like, you know why? With the dresses and the teacups. I am going to buy, I love, I'm a tea person and I have a lot of teacups anyway, but I need like a whole Bridgerton tea set. Like someone should make that and then send it to me.
What are your favorite foods to cook at home?
I hate cooking so intensely, especially now after the pandemic. So I'll say what food I like to order. My favorite food is sushi, and I eat it all, just like near constantly. So there's like a little Japanese place that's like around the corner from us, and I order from there all the time.
Would you rather have the power of invisibility or super strength?
Oh my God. This is an ongoing debate in my house, right? So David, it's always been flight versus invisibility for us. So David always chooses flight. I always choose invisibility. And he says that means I'm sneaky. And I say, I don't care. He says it's less noble than flight. And I don't care. Because you can learn so much about human nature. Like, I'm a writer. I'm the person in Starbucks that if you're over here having an argument, I'm totally eavesdropping. Like, I want to know what you're arguing about. I want to watch what your hands are doing when you argue. I want to watch the way you lean in or lean out. Like, I just want to know, right? So invisibility, I can learn everything about people, everything. It'd be amazing.
What is one fun hobby you took up during quarantine?
I mean, I guess I didn't take it up, but I did a lot more of it during quarantine, which is building Lego sets. I love Lego, and they have these creator sets, which are these huge buildings, these sets of thousands of people, and I have an entire village. I wish I can't take you to the living room, but I have like a whole video. There's a movie theater and a diner and a detective store and a garage. I had like the whole thing built. I built a lot of Lego over the last year.
This might be a bit controversial. Are you a dog or a cat person?
I am a cat person. We are cat people. We like the proud, independent Egyptian nobility.
Did you have any part in the movie making process of Everything, Everything, or The Sun is Also a Star?
Usually authors don't. I got to read the scripts and give notes on them. So that was good. Like Warner Brothers has been really great with that. But in general, authors never get any say over the casting or anything because it's a different medium, right? But they were very, very generous. So I did get to give notes on the script and stuff.
If you could listen to only one song while doing some sort of work, what song would that be?
Well, my favorite song of all time is Videotape by Radiohead. So I guess I would listen to that. That's a really good song. That's what I do.
Where is your favorite place to write?
This couch that you're looking at right here. So you can't see, but there's like a little lounge that comes over. I have a blanket and I have my laptop tray, and I sort of sit back like this, and I'm really gross all day. I like, if I'm revising, then I'm typing, or if I'm first drafting, I'm writing right hand. But this is it. This is the spot.
After quarantine ends, what is one place that you would love to travel to?
Oh, we've decided already. We're going to Tahiti. Like Tahiti is where we're going. We're going to like one of those overwater bungalows. I'm just gonna stay there. They're not gonna be able to kick me out. That's it. That's where I'm going. I'm not even pretending that I'm not doing that. That's what I'm doing.
What is your favorite thing to do with your family?
Oh man, we have a lot of traditions, especially during quarantine. We've like really stuck to them. I love movie nights on Fridays. On Sunday night, me and my little girl do story night. So she sleeps in my bed, and like David is not allowed to come in until she falls asleep, and we tell stories. So it's just like mama-daughter night. And so like I'll start a story, and then she'll continue it, and we'll keep going till we get to the end. I love doing that. We snuggle every morning for like an hour. That's ridiculous. We do a lot of Lego together. I mean, a lot of family stuff, like just like being together while doing something else. We love to do that.
My gosh, the idea of getting to like co-write a story with you, that is so cool. How you guys get to go back and forth. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, she's gonna be a good writer. That girl, she can put in a twist.
That's so cool. How nice. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Nicola, our teen panelist, Jennifer, everyone for helping make this program happen. I know I had a fabulous time, and I believe we all did too.
I mean, you guys, I'm telling you get excellent questions. Fantastic. You made this really, really good for me.
Yay. Yeah, so thank you all very, very much. And I guess that's the end. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.